record here and welcome everyone that's here already. Recognizing here that folks are still going to be chiming in even as we speak. But welcome everyone to our music or media industry panel. We have panels like this twice a year, once in the fall, once in the spring, and these, of course, always have happened on campus here. But I don't know if you all have heard, but we're in a pandemic, you know. So anyway, that was my attempt again at dad humor, as my kids call that. Anyway, so we're all on Zoom here. We hope to do this again on campus here in the near future. I want to introduce our two student leaders this evening who will be introducing our guest and interviewing our guest. And so Carly Patrick, wave Carly, who is the COO of our student-run club, organization, record label, all the above, York Music Group. And Julianne Diorio, raise your hand. Yep. She is the president of our record label that is a part of York Music Group called York Volume. And she also runs a podcast along with Elena Henry. Wave, Elena. And they have been interviewing a number of different industry executives, celebrities, and so on, right? So this is going to be a good evening. I hope everyone enjoys it. For those of you who have friends who could not make it, please tell them that I am indeed recording this and will make this available. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Carly Patrick.
All right, hi everybody. Today we have a really awesome guest. Author Dayna Steele is the CEO of JFA Incorporated, managing diverse interests including real estate, Broadway investment, corporate aviation, safety consulting, electric, urban air and ground mobility projects, and emerging greenhouse gas technologies. She is a longtime successful entrepreneur, professional business speaker, and author of 12 books. Dayna started the first NASA and space-themed e-commerce operation and was a top Texas rock radio personality inducted into the Texas Radio Hall of Fame in 2010, and she ran for US Congress in 2018. Dayna will discuss her career as an award-winning female rock and roll on-air personality. Having spent years traveling the globe and interviewing countless bands and rock stars like Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, Ozzy Osbourne, David Bowie, Bono, and KISS, just to name a few, Steele will discuss the importance of passion, confidence, organization, network, and the power of a brand. With a foreword by Gene Simmons of KISS, her latest book highlights various backstage adventures, celebrity escapades, and the secrets that she took from it all to create a successful business. She and her husband, former NASA research pilot Dr. Charles Justiz, reside in Houston, Texas, and together they raise entirely too many rescue dogs. Please welcome Dayna Steele.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me. I really do try a lot of different things, so.
Yeah, that's amazing. We're also a rescue dog family. So how did you get started in the entertainment industry?
I've always loved music, and I remember my mom loved, she always played records. She was, but radio, none of it was anything I ever thought about doing. And I went to Texas A&M University. I went to college when I was 16, which I was always really young because my birthday was right before the deadline. And then I graduated a year early, and I was always in a hurry. And I went off to Texas A&M. I started out pre-med, and I pretty much changed my major and my apartment every semester. And somewhere in there, Texas A&M is in College Station, and its sister town is Bryan, Texas. Bryan's like the big city. The big DJ at the top 40 station in Bryan, I met him at a party, and he was like the biggest celebrity I had ever met. And he was so tall and so cute. And I had such a crush. And he was probably making fun of the new student radio station, but I took it as a dare, and I went and auditioned because I thought if I auditioned for the station, he would ask me out. And he never asked me out. But the minute I put on the headphones, I just felt something. I felt a passion. I felt a comfort. I felt a burning desire to figure out how to do this and how to do it better. And to this day, I've really fought. Julianne and I were talking about your podcast. People have been trying to get me to do a podcast for years. And I'm like, God, no, that's what I did forever in radio. I don't know, everybody's got a podcast. But during the pandemic, like everyone else, it's like, what the heck? I'll do a podcast. I have nothing else to do. And I got to tell you, the minute I put the headphones on and started interviewing people, I was lost in it again. There's just something about it. Just, I would imagine, Carly, when you're like working in a recording studio, anything like that. I love being back in the studio per se, even if it is a closet with phone glued to the wall.
Yeah, we had to go through some at-home soundproofing as well. It's quite the adventure during COVID.
Oh, it is. It is. And when you're living with other people and dogs and doorbells and but I tell people it's okay. When I was started out in radio and production, everything had to be perfect. You had to be quiet. And then when I moved into television, everything had to be edited just perfect. Now it's like people expect mistakes. It's okay if I drink wine. It's okay if the dog is barking. We're all just kind of talking to each other. So I think one of the things I've learned, I did a speech earlier today, and one of the questions was, what is the one thing you've learned along the way? The most important thing, and that is that there's no such thing as failure. And if I had to add anything to it for you guys, it would be quit worrying about what people think. I wish I had known that at your age when I was in college. Quit worrying about your hair. As we discussed earlier, I shaved all mine and dyed it to entertain myself during a pandemic. But we all are so scared of failure. And that is why I do so many things now. It's because I've learned that you just do it and it either works or it doesn't. But I got into entertainment because I wanted to date. That's the short version. And he and I are still in touch, by the way. So
That's good. So speaking of being in college, do you have any insight as to how to use your time at college wisely, especially with arts and entertainment type degrees?
No, because I didn't manage my time well at all. I manage it well now. No, again, I changed my major and my apartment every semester, and then I got a job as a secretary at a radio station. So I dropped out thinking I would eventually go back, and I have tried to go back several times, and something weird always happens. The first time I tried to go back was during Challenger, which Houston being a space town, it just kind of disrupted everything. And I had friends who were astronauts. And then the second time I tried to go back, I was halfway through biology, which I hate more than coconut. And my mother got diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So it's one of those things I keep saying. I might be 82 years old, walking across the stage, getting my degree. One of these days, I'm going to do it. What I can say is become anal retentive about your time and learn to, I learned to do this when I started the space store, because I would get, I get one thing going and then somebody'd walk in and go, "Ooh, have you seen this project?" And then it was like being ADHD all the time. It was just like squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. And I had to learn, and I still do it to this day, to compartmentalize. So on Monday, I work on my LinkedIn page, and I have specific things I do on Mondays. I have specific things I do on Tuesdays. I have specific things I do on Wednesday. And I have all of my files in my computer set up that way. I have all of my my notes set up that way. I have my calendar set up that way. So unless it involves arterial bleeding and someone's going to die, which most of what I do doesn't, if it has something to do with, for example, I'm out in Palm Springs, California right now. We have rental property out here. Unless it's like unless the plumbing's overflowing or whatever, if it's something that can wait, it goes into the Thursday file. I only book new guests for the podcast on Fridays and half of Monday. I mean, it's extremely anal retentive, but it's how I get so much done. If I have an idea for a book, I put that in my notes for, I think Wednesdays are my book day. It just goes in then and I let go of it. So I used to have files. I'm trying to do no paper. But I had even the files set up the same way. This is the things I do on Monday. This is the things I do on, it's being extremely organized and diligent about it and getting it done, but not letting it control what you do.
Mhm.
Because it is, everything becomes squirrel. And you get lost and things don't get the attention. And I also discover that I get a lot more done if I ignore the things that need to be done on the other days. And then I can concentrate on more like, I want to read a book, or my husband's written another sci-fi novel. I want to go, finish editing that. But it's being extremely organized. And that is one of the things I learned and prompted me to write the book, is that there's a difference between rock stars and one-hit wonders, celebrities and wannabe celebrities. And that is work ethic. It's not always talent. It is work ethic. And I like to use the example, bands don't go, wow, that was a good show. Where do y'all want to go tomorrow? That tour is planned out 2 years in advance. The logistics, my son is the assistant stage manager for Fiddler on the Roof. I mean, he's got things planned out months in advance. Now that he can't work and he's home with us, every time we do one of these long trips, I get a stage management document that, where the nearest vet is, where the nearest hospital is, what time we'll be arriving, where we'll be staying, who we need to call, what we're eating. But you have to, because can you imagine trying to juggle that many people in that many cities? And it's the same for you guys. You're trying to find yourselves. You're trying to take your classes. You're trying to do the work. You're trying to graduate. You're also trying to create a career. And you can absolutely drive yourself batshit crazy. Can I say that?
Yeah.
So you have to organize. And if you can get organized now, the sky is the limit what you can accomplish.
So I was going to ask you what inspired you to start writing. However, you may have already answered that, but I wanted to still throw it out there in case you had more.
I think I've always enjoyed it. Again, never thought of myself as a DJ, never thought of myself as a speaker, never thought of myself as a writer. But I started writing a little newsletter when I first started out, when I first got the job at KLOL, which is my dream job. And that's where I really started meeting the big rock stars and being around the powerful managers and getting to meet everybody. And when that happens, you get lots of insight, you get lots of stories, you learn lots of things maybe you shouldn't know. So I started writing sort of this little tongue-in-cheek, snarky one-page newsletter on things that were happening. It was almost like a gossipy kind of thing. And, there was no facts, there was no, online or anything. And so I would write this newsletter once a quarter, and it would mail out to about, I guess at one point it was going to about 5,000 industry people. And I just really enjoyed writing, and it's not something I kept up with. But when I started giving speeches, when I did television, whatever, I would write my own scripts and whatever. But when I started giving speeches, people started saying, you really should write down these stories. And then people would say, do you have a book? And that's when the capitalist in me went, I am letting money walk out the door. So I sat down and started writing. And to this day, when people say, but where do you start? You just start. You just start. Whether you're writing a song or you're writing a paper or you're writing a book, you just start. And the most prolific writers that I know, like best-selling author Brad Meltzer, and myself, and from what I've read about Stephen King, they have specific times they write each day. I try to write from 10 to noon each day. Some days I just stare at a blank page and think I have nothing to say. And other days I can't, my fingers can't move fast enough to get out everything I want to get out. My husband writes usually on the weekends. The last time I talked to Brad Meltzer, I think he was writing like from 4 to 6 in the morning because he had young kids at the time. They've now grown up. Stephen King has a certain hour he writes, and everybody knows that unless the house is on fire and it involves my office, don't bother me. I don't care how it, I don't care if you can't find a bar of soap. It's not my problem from 10 to noon. So again, it's discipline. That's another word nobody ever associates with rock and roll or with celebrity and success. And I'm telling you, they're very disciplined. They set times to learn their craft, practice their craft. Mick Jagger does 2 hours of yoga a day and 2 hours of dance. He's what, 190? And he can still has more stamina than I do. But it's because he eats right and he stretches every day and he dances every day and he runs 5 miles every day. And he has to for his body to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I think that answered the question.
Oh, for sure. And more. Thank you. So what is your perspective on the music industry in general? And I guess also, especially right now with, you know, everything that's been going on in the world.
It's that you can do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
When I still have people that come to me all the time, you know, how do I get a record deal? How do I get my daughter a record deal? How do I get my band a record deal? I'm like, you don't. How do I get a movie? How do I get Warner Brothers to look at my film? How do I get a publisher? How do I get an agent? You don't. You have everything at your fingertips to do it yourself. You create good product and create your own tribe with social media. I didn't have any of those things starting out. If you liked rock and roll, you listened to me. There was no Spotify. There were no iTunes. There was no other choice. You know, DJs call me now and say, but I want to have a career like yours. How do you do it? I'm like, well, you get rid of iTunes and you get rid of the internet and you get rid of, you can't. But you guys have, I'm 61 years old and sometimes I get so frustrated because there's so many other things I want to do and I only have so much time to do them. You guys have your entire lives, your entire careers ahead of you. And you have so much at your disposal right there. So create a product that's good. I'm out here in Palm Springs where my best friend she was Lionel Richie's guitarist. She ran away from boarding school when she was 19 to see Ike and Tina Turner, ended up living in their studio and running the studio for them. Ike Turner taught her to run the studio. But she's got this young artist, Braden, who's 16, who is so good. And they're like, well, I think we're going to drop the single on Tuesday. I'm like, why on Tuesday? Because that's when singles are dropped. And I'm not anymore. Just do it when it feels right and create a tribe of people who love what you do. Give them ownership in what you do. Let them be a part of your social media team. Build a tribe. Because when you have 100,000 downloads or 100,000 sales of your book or whatever, that's when the record companies or the movie companies or the publishing companies or the agents are going to come to you. And when they come to you, the deal is always so much better. And then you have to think about it. Do you really want the deal? You look at somebody like the Eagles who, when their record contract was up, they went straight to Walmart. They made more money off of that album they distributed directly to Walmart than they did off of their 15 albums combined before that. Do it yourself. You can create your own website. You can create your own pages. You can find your own fans. You can build your own t-shirts. You can do whatever. It's going to be hard work no matter what you do. I tell people if you get a record deal or you get a book deal, good for you. You're still going to have to do your own marketing and your own promotion, but now you've given up 70 to 90% of the profits. That's why I self-publish. I can make 25 cents a book with an agent and a publishing house, or I can make $6 to $7 a book by doing it myself. You know, am I in all the bookstores? No. Does anyone go in a bookstore? No. So just do it yourself. You can do it. There's a great book. I think it's Seth Godin that has written a book about building tribes, and it's a pretty heavy book, but it means basically do what you love, find the people that love what you do, and then get them to talk about it. And that's bringing them in through your social media and being letting them be a part of your whole process. Taylor Swift does it great. Taylor Swift does it. I mean, go back and study, whether you like her music or not, study what she's done with her fan base.
Mm.
And then she has, you know, she brings some of her super fans to her house to make cookies and pet her cats or whatever. And then what do? They talk about Taylor Swift forever.
Yep.
And tell everybody to go buy Taylor's records. So it's building your own tribe of fans that will promote and buy and sell what you do.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
I think it's Carly. Carly wants to go in, you know, into the film industry.
Mhm.
Start following people on LinkedIn that are in the film industry. Follow the people that you want to be wherever they are. Are they on Twitter? Are they on TikTok? Are they on Spotify? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on a combination of these things? Find the people you want to be. Start following them and studying them. That's what I did. I studied not only the rock stars, but the one-hit wonders. I knew my shelf life as a female rock and roll DJ was short, no matter what. It just is. And I also knew I wasn't going to make the same amount of money that the guys did unless I figured out how the guys did it. And so every Thursday night, all of the big industry heavy hitters in radio in Houston, in radio and records in Houston, would meet at for happy hour at this bar. So I started going every Thursday until I finally got to know them and I became a part of the conversation and I got to be friends. Find the people you want to be. Hang out with them. It's never been easier. They're all on Twitter or LinkedIn or TikTok. I've made more friends on Twitter just by starting to follow somebody and then retweeting and commenting on their stuff. And the next thing you know, they're commenting on my stuff. I've never been a sci-fi fan ever in my whole life. And I married a geek and gave birth to geeks. And so now I'm immersed in all things Star Trek and Star Wars and Star everything. And I started following Anthony Rapp because I love his Broadway career. And then he got cast on Star Trek. And now we talk all the time. I never met the man in my life, but we're like really good friends. I got to be really good friends with Julianne Emery. I don't know if you've seen the TV show Preacher, or she was Mrs. Kettleman in Better Call Saul. But it all started on Twitter. So follow the people that you really admire or want to be and become a part of their conversation. And the way you do that is by promoting and selling their stuff for them. And they notice that.
Speaking of, you touched on it a little bit. What is it like being a woman in the arts and entertainment industry? And if you want, you know, you can talk about it in all the other things you do, like politics and whatnot as well.
Politics is brutal.
Actually.
It's not anything I ever intended to do. It became a group of women after He Who Shall Not Be Named was elected. It became a group of women meeting at my house who had never been in politics ever in their whole lives. There may or may not have been massive amounts of wine involved, going, what do we do? Nobody ever runs in this position. We got to get somebody to run. And then next thing I know, everybody's like, you do it. I'm like, I was a rock and roll DJ in the 80s. I have no secrets. I pose nude for the cover of a magazine. I don't think, next thing I know, I'm running for Congress. What was it like? It's given me a career my entire life. I'm obviously passionate about it. I loved it. But again, I just loved more than anything when I put on the headphones and I started mixing music. There's just something about when you mix the music just right, or you do an interview with a rock star and you know you've just nailed it, or you help one of those rock stars and they remember it years later. I was the first person in the country to play Melissa Etheridge. Nobody was going to play Melissa's music. And that was at a time when you had maybe 20 songs. You had 8 songs in high rotation, and then you had so many in medium and so many in low. And every music meeting, every week, I would hear, well, we're already playing a woman, or we played a woman last week. You never can have 2 women. So, I mean, if I had a hit song from Heart, and I had a hit song from Joan Jett, and I had a hit song from Melissa Etheridge, and I had a hit song from, whatever, they would say, oh, well, you got to pick one. We can only play, and country music still does that. Oh, we've already played 2 women this hour. We can't play anymore. It's like, yes, you can. So I was one of the first people to play. I was the first person to play Melissa Etheridge in a major market. And a big supporter, became friends, lost touch over the years. And not long after I decided to run for Congress, I saw where Melissa Etheridge had tagged me on Twitter. Again, I don't know how we kept in touch before all social media. But I hadn't talked to her in 20 years, 25 years maybe. And she was like, oh my God, Dayna Steele is running for Congress. We all have to support her. And then David Crosby, who I have kept in touch with, it's a long story, but it's how I met my husband, said, oh my God, Dayna Steele's running for Congress. I'm like, do not check any of your emails. And then so I tagged both of them joking and said, well, then you should both come to town and do a fundraiser for me. And about a week later, David Crosby called me and said, I got some dates for you. I'm like, oh, cool. Are you going on tour? And he goes, no, we're coming to Houston to do a concert for you.
Oh,
So
that's
Melissa
so
Etheridge
nice.
and David Crosby came to Houston and played a concert in a club for 300 people. It was friggin' amazing. And then David went on to do a private lunch for me in Austin. Melissa did another show for me, and then a private show in someone's living room in LA to raise money for politics. But they did it because they remembered what I did for them. So that's the lesson I try to teach in everything I do. The more you do to help someone else be successful, the more successful you will become. You don't know when it's going to happen, but if you constantly help others and bring others into the process, they remember that years later, and you don't know how it's going to come back to you. David Crosby was in prison in Texas, drugs, gun, club, put it all together. He was at rock bottom and ended up in prison. When he got out, he was in a halfway house in Houston. And his manager called and said, I know you don't know David. I know you don't know me, but you came to a party at my house once and you wrote me a thank you note, which no one's ever done. And the note said, here's my number. If you ever need anything in Houston, let me know. And that's another thing. You guys, please keep writing thank you notes. You have no idea how powerful a handwritten note is. When you get an interview for jobs or whatever, if it's between you and another candidate and you're the one who wrote a handwritten thank you note, I promise they're going to notice you. This guy, I had written that note 6 years earlier. Can you help us find a dentist? Can you help us? David was in really bad shape getting out of prison. And he said, the people I do know won't do it unless I can promise them an exclusive interview. He said, this is the first time David's been sober since he was 12 years old. He's not doing interviews. And of course I helped. And, through that, David and I became friends. David remembered that. When David came through town with Crosby, Stills, and Nash, I call it the post-prison tour. I'm sure it had another name, but he was like, there's a bunch of astronauts who want to come. Can you help me take care of it? Sure, I'll help you take care of it. That sounds like fun. One of the astronauts brought Charlie Justiz. I've been Mrs. Charlie Justiz for almost 29 years now. I mean, you just never know when you do something to help someone else succeed in anything, whether it's just, in David's case, health. People remember, good people remember, and they come back later. So it was a great time. And I was around some incredible artists, but you know, we involved the artist in all the charity work that we did. And, you know, yes, it was an amazing time. And to this day, I was supposed to go on tour this summer with Joan Jett for the Def Leppard Motley Crue tour. And when I say on tour, I mean, I was just going to go hang out backstage and eat vegetarian food and, you know, stand on the side of stage and watch people play. But I still get such a charge out of all of it. There's just something about, I don't know, it just touches my very soul to put on the headphones in a studio, whether it's a radio studio or a podcast studio, or listen to Jeannie when she's working with Braden here, or to just stand on the side of the stage and just watch a band do what they do. It's very, yeah, it reaches the depths of my soul. Music and any kind of music, Broadway, live performance, whatever. And I can't sing, I can't carry a note. I was trained as a classical pianist when I was young, and nobody would let me tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree, so I quit. So I think it's the hits, it's that sort of thing.
Yeah. So can you tell us what you think the future of broadcast media is?
Oh, wow. This pandemic has really changed things, and it'll be interesting to see how it goes back. Podcasts were, you know, I didn't want to do one. People weren't real sure about them. They've become they're a mainstay now. Mm-hmm. They are a mainstay. And just like anything else, it'll get harder and harder to break into the podcast market because there is so much noise out there and there is so much product. But you just have to do something that you really love. When I first started in talk radio, I tried to be what I thought people wanted me to be. And I was awful. I was horrible. And when I just started being myself, I did well. As a speaker, I put on the pantyhose and the pantsuit and tried to be the business speaker. And that's when I realized, you know, I was boring people. People didn't want to see that. People wanted to see the rock and roll chick they grew up listening to, and they wanted to hear the stories. So if you want to succeed at anything, it's, you know, it's still an odds game, but you have to do something you genuinely, honestly believe in. You have to believe in your product, your service, your music, your speech, your podcast, whatever it is you do, and do the hard work to make it sound good and to promote it. But it's got to be something you truly love.
Yeah.
You know, I was going to say real quick, I used to speak every year to, it was called like the oil industry tribute to interns, whatever. I was speaking to a bunch of oil industry interns, and I talked about passion. And I had a kid come up to me, a young man come up to me afterwards, and he was like, well, I'm passionate about golf, but I'm a senior and I'm majoring in accounting for the oil and gas industry because that's what my parents want me to do, and I don't like it, so I can't pursue my passion. I'm like, Tiger Woods needs an accountant. You know, Golf Tech needs an accountant. Golfers need accountants. Golf stores need accountants. Golf club makers need accountants. If that's your passion, you know, it's not what my parents would want me to tell you. Your parents will want me to tell you, but you know, you got to find what you love. And I was really fortunate that I went off to study pre-med, and despite the fact I passed out at the sight of blood, and my parents let me do it. And when I said, I'm going to quit and come home and be a DJ for a while, work at a radio station, they went, okay, give it a try. See what you think. My 21-year-old graduated from high school and college at the same time with an associate's degree at 18. And he's working in a movie theater right now because he's like, Mom, I'm just burned out. I'm not sure what it is I want to do because I did so, you know, I was in college and high school at the same time for 4 years. I'm burned out. It's like, find something you love. Just find something you love. Don't do it for the money. Do it because you can't imagine not doing whatever it is.
Yep. So can you tell us about the power of a brand?
Oh yeah, look at mine. I'm 61 years old and I still get to wear rock and roll. I still get to wear Joan Jett t-shirts for a living. Mm-hmm. it's just making yourself memorable. That's what a brand is. A brand can be nothing more than your reputation. But this is how I teach people to build a brand. Come up with 3 words that describe what you do that make somebody say, tell me more. Then come up with a sentence that makes people, they used to call it an elevator speech. Elevators are really fast these days. So come up with 3 words that make somebody say, ooh, what does that mean? Or tell me more. Then come up with a sentence that makes people go, tell me more. Then come up with a paragraph that's like 3 to 5 sentences. At that point, you have them and they want to know more, and you can have a conversation and you want to ask about them. This all came from sitting on an airplane. As much traveling as I was doing, somebody would say, what do you do? And I'd say, I'm a speaker and an author. And they would go, oh, and they would put in their headphones, and, you know, it was like, oh, you know, oh my God, no, don't talk to me. So I started saying, create rock stars. 100% of the time, somebody says, are you a manager? Are you in the music business? What does that mean? And I'd say, well, I worked with the world's greatest rock stars for over 20 years and learned what makes the difference between a rock star and a one-hit wonder in music and business. 100% of the time. Well, what did you learn? Who did you meet? Who did you work with? And then I could explain what I do. And by that point, then they've completely turned their body language towards you and they're like, tell me more. Mm-hmm. And at which point I say, well, you know, tell me what you do, and then I can tell you how my business applies to yours. That's how you create a brand. I tried to walk away from this whole rock and roll chick because I thought, you know, I'm getting too old to do this. I got to be more respectable. I'm a business speaker. And it wasn't any fun for me, and it confused the people that had come with me all the way from radio and books, and that's when I embraced it and said, it is what I do. I create rock stars. I've been doing it since the 80s. Back then I created real rock stars. Now I create business rock stars. A brand is just, it's taking what you do and being able to tell people in the briefest of terms. Nike, just do it.
Right.
You know, think of what your favorite brands are and why are they your favorite brands? It's because they do something for you. They make you feel sexy. They make you feel smart. They make you feel lucky. They make you feel good. Why do you go see the bands? The bands, that they are their brand. KISS is a brand. The Rolling Stones are a brand. U2 is a brand. If you pay $100, well, $200 now for a concert ticket to go see KISS, and all they do is play their new music. No. I want what made you the brand KISS. So a brand is just delivering what I try to, the best way I can put it is I tell people every single fan, listener, customer, potential client, potential fan is thinking the same 3 things. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? And what's in it for me? So if you can create something and tell people what's in it for them, one of the things I try to advise college students is every semester, at the beginning of every semester, you should go visit with every single one of your professors during their regular business hours, introduce yourself, and ask them what they wish they had known at your age at this point in their lives. And the mere fact you got them to talk about themselves, I promise you they will remember you. And then you sit in the front row. Well, now you've created a brand for yourself as a good student, as a student who wants to learn, as a student who really cares about this class. And that can sometimes be the difference between an A and a B and a C. And don't be like my son who says D's get degrees. Stop it.
Oh no.
No, look at what they do.
Oh, well, along the same lines, what advice do you have for marketing yourself or your music or your podcast or your anything?
Be organized. We go back to being organized. Who's your audience? What do they consume? I remember I used to speak to business audiences and go, okay, if I wanted to reach my late mom, I called her on the phone or I knocked on the door. If you want to reach my husband and me, email's the best. If I want to get my 30-year-old son's attention, I text him. If I want to get my 24-year-old son's attention, I post an unattractive picture of him on Instagram. I hear from him immediately. Now, come down to my 21-year-old. My 21-year-old, here's your potential fan or customer. He hates social media. He's not on any social media. He doesn't watch television. He streams Netflix or Amazon Prime. He doesn't watch the news. He doesn't read the news. He doesn't consume the news in any way. You have a new product or a new song. How the hell are you going to reach him? That's what you have to think of. Who's your audience? How do they consume information or products? How are you going to reach them? And then I'll have people say, yeah, well, I don't like Twitter. Well, if that's where your damn audience is, you better learn it. I have everything. I've got my podcast on everything. I have TikTok. My audience isn't on TikTok. That's more for entertainment for me. But my audience could move there someday. You never know. All of us old people took over your Facebook. So there. We can take over your TikTok too someday. What's your product? Who's going to buy it? How do they consume information? How are you going to get it to them? How are you going to tell them what you do? So it changes. It depends. It just depends. I promote my speaking and coaching on LinkedIn. I promote my books on Facebook because people tend to share them. And sometimes I'll talk about them on LinkedIn. I promote my play and my Palm Springs condo rental on Instagram because there's lots of pictures. It just depends on who your audience is and where they are.
Well, it looks like I have time to ask you one more question.
I have to see who this person's name is. It's very tiny on my iPad mini. Is that Holden? Holden? Holden's got music on. He's dancing or something. Holden, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. You look like you're in a prison cell. Where are you? Are you in your dorm room?
Yeah, I'm in my dorm room right now.
That's why it looks like a prison cell. Okay.
Unfortunately, that's what the dorms look like.
Because Holden was kind of like grooving to something. He was either agreeing with me. I'm going to assume you are agreeing with me or you're listening to something while I'm talking. But I was like, oh my God, that looks like my dorm room from 50 years ago. Have they not changed anything?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
Okay. Hi, Holden. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
All right. I have time to ask you one more question before we open it up. And I think the only topic I have on here that we haven't gotten to is, can you talk about the notion of a celebrity?
I still find it so fascinating. When I go somewhere, I was standing in line in customs in Panama City. And it was a really long line and it was a really slow line. We'd been traveling all day. So we'd probably been in line for about 30 minutes when the woman behind me, it was like, we were doing that little S thing. And she finally ended up kind of beside us and she goes, "Are you Dayna Steele?" That still just always blows me away because I'm like, yes. She's like, "Oh, okay. I'm from Houston. I listened to you." I think it's like when somebody says, "Can you do a campaign for me and make it viral?" No, I can't make it viral, but if you make your product good, maybe it will go viral. I don't think you can make somebody a celebrity. I don't think you can make something go viral. I think you can, again, do something you're really passionate about, network with others, perfect your craft every single day. If you think you're at the top of your game, you will fail. You will fail. It's constantly getting better. And as you grow your tribe will decide if you're a celebrity or not. And if you start to believe your own press and run with that and forget about the people that got there, then you lose your celebrity. Somebody who does it really well right now is Chrissy Teigen. Chrissy is, you know, she's just amazing, but she's remained true to herself. She still has a potty mouth, but she shared her miscarriage to the point I was in tears looking at the picture, because I've been there. I've done that. I've miscarried. It's a very sad thing. And for her to share that, she shares the personal side, but she's still selling you her recipes and selling you her books and selling you her utensils. Look, we made pad thai and I used one of my new pans that's available at Target, but here's the recipe for how you do it. So she's constantly giving you things. Lady Gaga, at some point several years ago, when she realized she had broken sales records for, I think it was Michael Jackson, it was a huge milestone. Her staff got champagne and everybody was celebrating, and she went in the bathroom, locked herself in the bathroom and had a panic attack, because all she could think of was, what am I going to do next? How am I going to get better? What's the next thing I'm going to give my fans? Celebrity is something your tribe will decide if you're a celebrity or not. And if you decide you're a celebrity and you don't have to do anything else, your tribe will leave you. So it's a thing. It's not something you can strive to be. You can only strive to be the best you are. It's something you love, and find the people that love what you do and bring it to them. But then you have to keep bringing it to them, and you have to keep it reinventing, and you have to, look how many times I've reinvented myself. Look at how many times Lady Gaga has reinvented herself. You have to keep changing and trying new things and not being afraid to fail. And if you become a celebrity in the process, great. Use it for good. I mean, I love the trappings. I love the, back in the day when we could actually go to restaurants, I didn't need a reservation in Houston. I don't need to stand in line. I just show up and I get shown to a table. But let me tell you, I will come home and write the maitre d' a thank you note, a handwritten thank you note, and mail it. And I will be the only person that night that he probably got a handwritten thank you note from. Mm-hmm. It's why when I go to see a concert, I'm not out in the audience. I'm backstage where there's a bathroom and food. But it's because I've never stopped saying thank you and being appreciative for what I was given and what I have gotten to do. And that's, I think, the people that stay celebrities are the ones, Taylor Swift, Chrissy Teigen, who's the cute country star married to Nicole Kidman?
Keith Urban.
Keith Urban. He does so much for his fans. I mean, he immediately during the lockdown started doing free concerts from his home studio. Melissa Etheridge started doing free concerts from her home studio, which she then turned into a subscription service. She makes probably 50 grand a month doing concerts from her garage, which she turned into a concert hall. We're all constantly having to learn to reinvent and try new things, but also continuing to help others and bring them along with us. If you can do that, you can make it through a pandemic, you can make it through a career, you can make it through anything. So that to me is what a celebrity is. It's somebody who's made it to the top, but continues to do better and offer new things, but also take care of the people that brought them to the dance.
Yeah. thank you so much. So now I'm going
Sure.
to open it up to everybody else if they want to ask a question. So either raise your real life hand or raise your Zoom hand, and I'll just kind of go around and call on who I see raise first.
Or tell me
Okay.
your favorite band or concert or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, I see Adam Brennan has raised a hand, so go ahead.
Hi, how you doing, Miss Dayna?
Hi, I'm good. Where's Adam?
It sounded like you have you're kind of like a Charlie Murphy. Like if you ever seen Dave Chappelle, where he does like a lot of skits and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a story, like a Hollywood story?
Yeah, I'll tell you one of my favorite Hollywood stories. That is, it's a rock and roll story, and it involves Van Halen, which is appropriate since we just lost Eddie. Sammy Hagar's manager, Ed Loeffler, who, by the way, everybody called him Eddie, and they called Eddie Ed. So it was always very confusing anytime we were all together on which Eddie and which Ed we were talking to. But I'd gotten to know. I knew Sammy and Eddie really well. And then when Ed Loeffler took over managing Van Halen, when Sammy joined them, I was just always around them a lot. And there was this kid in Houston. He was 18 years old, named Kevin Hendon. Kevin was had just turned 18 and had just graduated from high school. And he was living with cystic fibrosis at a time when CF patients did not live to be teenagers. So it was a really big deal. And the local newspaper did a story on him. And he was doing all these inspirational quotes that were inspirational to him, that kept him going as an 18-year-old CF patient. And I recognized them all as Van Halen lyrics. So I sent the article to Ed Loeffler, the manager, because Van Halen was coming to Houston. So they made a big deal out of it. They made arrangements for Kevin to come to the concert and be their special guest. They had made arrangements for medical personnel and oxygen to be backstage, because that was back when you could still smoke in the building. Obviously not good for a CF patient. And a few days before the concert, Kevin got really sick and went back into the hospital, into Texas Children's Hospital. And on the day of the concert, this is when Van Halen was at their peak. They were traveling with more semis than any other band. They should have been at the summit doing a sound check. Instead, they called me. They said, come to the hotel. We're getting in the limos. We're going to the hospital. We did. They spent about 30 minutes with Kevin. They brought him a guitar. They brought him an amp. It was the most amazing thing to do for this kid. About 8 weeks after that, Kevin died. And in the words of Kevin's aunt, Van Halen sent the largest, ugliest flower arrangement she's ever seen at a funeral. And at the end of the funeral, all of Kevin's friends from high school lined up and each got a flower from the Van Halen arrangement. And that's my favorite story to tell. Thank you for asking me to tell a story, because I don't care how big you are, you do what's right. You do the right thing. You do something nice for people. Van Halen did not have to do that. I was still going to play Van Halen songs, whether they did that or not. And it was a very, very special thing. And if you're just really bored one night, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is Dayna Steele. And in my personal videos, I did not realize his parents had their movie camera there and had filmed that. And several years ago, they gave me the film, so I uploaded it to YouTube. And it's just the band spending some time with a young CF patient that they did not have to do, but they did it. And it's something that I will never forget. I hope that's the kind of story you were talking about.
Yeah, I will watch that. Thank you so much for that story.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I loved it. You know what? If you can tell people a story, you can sell them anything. Just learn. Yeah, people love stories. We like to hear the real life side of things. I think one of the best pieces of advice I ever got in radio was from a program director who used to hotline me all the time. If I said, it's hot outside, it's cold in here, how are all of you doing? He said, no matter how many people are listening to you, they each have one brain and one heart and one soul and one set of ears. And everybody wants to think you're talking to them. So from that point on, he said, no matter what you say on the radio, always say it like you're saying it to your best friend, Christy, who was my best friend at the time and still is. So instead of saying it's partly cloudy with a chance of rain, I'd say, hey, you might want to grab an umbrella before you leave the house today because it looks like it might rain a little bit later on. And by the way, I might have some Van Halen tickets for you later, so stick around. Never said y'all, I said you, all of you, you. And I learned to do that when I speak on stage. And what is that in the corner? Is that somebody's hair or somebody's dog now has come to visit? But when I'm on stage giving a speech, is it your dog? Yeah, it was your cat.
Talking about me?
Hello, kitty. I started to grab my dogs, but they disappeared. I try to do that on stage. I don't care if I'm on stage speaking to 2,000 people at a business conference. I say you. You need to share your passion. You need to keep up with your industry. You need to do what's right. So that was a great bit of advice. If you're ever in a business meeting, always speak as if you're speaking to one person, because that's one person at a time hears you.
Any more questions from the crowd? Zachary Lukens.
Hi. So I just noticed when you were talking, you're focusing on, your audience and your fan base and how you want to stay connected to them and reach out to them. And you mentioned how it changed from when you were in college and, all throughout the years. So I was curious, in your experience, what's changed the most in society or music or whatever you can think of that you adapted to?
Is that you don't have to wait to be invited to the dance, so to speak. You don't have to be invited to write a book. You don't have to be invited to record a song. You don't have to be invited to make a movie. You've got everything you need right here on your phone to create anything. That is how things have changed. You can make your own company. You can make your own product. You can make your own content. You don't have to wait anymore, and there are no rules. Make it good. Find the people who like it. Those are the only rules. And let them know about it on their terms.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zachary.
Anybody else? Anybody? No? Got 2 minutes. Oh, Elena.
Hi. Can you tell us what's the most ridiculous story you have? Your favorite, most ridiculous story?
Oh gosh, it was the 80s. I don't remember. They're just funny things. I mean, there's things that I remember. Like, for example, Melissa Etheridge. Speaking of Melissa Etheridge, I was supposed to go to her concert like in San Antonio or something. I don't know. Something came up and I didn't go. So she told the audience that night live on stage, my friend Dayna's supposed to be here and she's not here. So I'm going to give you her phone number. And she gave them, in the radio station, we had a hotline and a warm line. So the only people who had the hotline were like, the program director. But the warm line, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your spouse, your kids, your best friend, people that needed to get you, because you probably had the request line on hold and weren't answering it. So she gave out the warm line on stage. So the next day when I was on the air, I was getting all these calls. Like, hey, Dayna, hey, Melissa said to tell you she missed you. And after about like 10 phone calls, I'm like, what the hell? And I mean, like the warm line rang all day. I'm like, oh my God, Melissa Etheridge just gave out the warm line. You're supposed to protect that phone number with your life. And now she's given it to everyone in San Antonio. So this was when fax machines had first come out and the paper was all on one roll. And then you had to cut each individual fax you got. So I knew she had a fax machine at her house. So I went on the air and told all of my listeners Melissa Etheridge's fax number several times and said, just send her a note that Dayna says hi. So Melissa gets home from tour and there are just rolls and rolls and the whole thing is used up, of course, on her fax machine. And there's rolls and rolls of messages that say Dayna says hi. So we had to call a truce. And I guess the other one is it's an AC/DC story. I was dating, you know, how do you date somebody on the road? But I was dating Brian Johnson, the lead singer of AC/DC, for a short period of time. And again, we were in San Antonio, and after the show, we went to a Mexican restaurant on the Riverwalk. And Brian has an extremely heavy Northern England, Newcastle, somewhere between an English accent and a Scottish accent that no one can understand. He would call me from the road and I would say, uh-huh, uh-huh. And he would finally say, you haven't fucking understood a word I've said. And I'm like, no, not a word. So we were in this restaurant on the Riverwalk and he kept ordering nachos and they kept bringing us matches. Made him so mad. Every time I ordered nachos, I think of that story. I just want some nachos. He just couldn't say nachos. So, I mean, it was all kinds of stories like that. It was great fun and things I shouldn't have seen and people I met and things I saw and things we did. It was fun. It was great fun.
I love
Grateful
that.
I never got caught.
Dayna, I'd like to hear something about Ozzy, if you have anything.
Not so much about Ozzy, but one of my dearest friends is Carmine Appice, who was Ozzy's drummer for a long time. He wrote Do You Think I'm Sexy for Rod Stewart. He was the drummer for Vanilla Fudge. And on one of Ozzy's biggest tours, Carmine was the drummer. And Carmine's like, I'm going to be in town tomorrow with Ozzy. I'm like, yeah, no shit. And the thing is when you're on the road and you don't have, you know, on the road is not as glamorous as people think. So Carmen's like, can I borrow your car? I'll drop you off at the studio. I need to go run some errands. He needed to go to the drugstore. He needed to go to the grocery store, whatever. He needed to go to Office Depot. I don't know. He needed to pick up normal people things. And he said, and then I was doing nights at the time. I think I was doing a 6 to 10 shift. He said, I will come after the gig and pick you up. Perfect. That worked out perfect. So I gave him my car, and I get off the air and there's no Carmine and, you know, there's no cell phones then. So I have the backstage phone number. So I call backstage and say, yeah, I need to speak with Carmine Appice. They're like, he doesn't work here. Yeah, well, I know he doesn't work there. He's the drummer for Ozzy. And they're like, no, he's not. I'm like, yes, he is. He's in concert there tonight. And they're like, no. When he walked off stage, Sharon fired him. He's gone. Okay. So I finally heard from Carmine and I ended up with Carmine. And if you've been to a major rock concert, you've seen the size of a drum kit, right? Like at an Ozzy Osbourne concert. I had that entire drum kit and Carmine and his roadie in my apartment for, I guess, about 3 or 4 days while they made arrangements to get a truck and haul all of that stuff back to Los Angeles. So that's my story. I never saw Ozzy pee on anything and I never saw him eat a bat, but I did get stuck with his drummer for a few days.
Wonderful.
And by the way, Sharon Osbourne has always been in charge of everything. Sharon's father managed Black Sabbath. That's how she met Ozzy. And Ozzy really is that doofy. Sharon is so the power behind all of that.
All right, we're at 8:34, and I think we told you that we would be done by 8:30. So if you want to stay, I'll let them ask more questions. But if you have to go,
how about 2 more questions? How's that? And then I
more.
have to go put on my mom hat and cook dinner.
Okay.
My pandemic mom hat because it's too scary to go out to dinner. So there.
Right. All right. 2 more. Who has a question? Seamus.
Hi, Seamus. You're kind of in the dark there, but
Hi, how are you? Sorry.
you look like you're being interrogated.
I just wanted to ask, I know around our country in the US, there's a lot of scenes to be in, like LA, New York City, Philly, all those. Do you have a favorite out of all those major cities where you could say the music industry is
You know, it's changed, Seamus, over my career. Um, in my 20s, when I was first starting out, it was LA. That is where rock and roll was happening, on Sunset Boulevard. But it's changed over time, and it really doesn't matter now as far as a scene. I mean, I'm older now. I love coming to Palm Springs. I invest in Broadway. I have 2 hits on Broadway. Could we please end the pandemic and get my hits back so that I could get checks on a monthly basis? That would be lovely. And when the pandemic is over, please go see Come From Away and Tina the Musical. Thank you very much. Those are my musicals.
I actually already have, so.
Oh, yay. Thank you. I probably got 1/10 of a penny off of your ticket price, but thank you.
Nice.
Those are my shows, and I need my shows to come back.
Lovely. Yeah, there we go.
You know, the scenes they're in New York. They're in, if I was still in the music business right now, I would be probably in Nashville. Nashville is just rocking. It's like the music scene of New Orleans with the cleanliness of Austin. I would so be in Nashville right now because there's so much happening right there. I would say music business, Nashville, obviously musical theater. I would still be in New York, although there's a really strong scene in Seattle right now. And I'm watching these two. Is it Alley? Yeah, I'm watching Alley. Yeah, I love Broadway music. I am such a Broadway geek. Oh my God. Oh my God. I miss Broadway so much. I miss all of my actors. I miss all my shows.
Yeah.
I can't sing a note, but I can sing every song from Come From Away. And I was supposed to spend my birthday in August with Claude, the real mayor of Gander, in Gander. That's where we were going, but of course we can't go anywhere now. So, so as far as a scene, Seamus, it depends on what you want to do. But for music, Nashville. For musical theater, you want to go to, if you're not in New York, you want to be at one of the theaters where Alley, where shows are breaking out of. Paper Mill in New Jersey, La Mirada, south of Los Angeles. Up in Toronto, there's a big musical. You want to go to one of those places. And if you want to be gay and fabulous, you come here in Palm Springs with me. So there, where we all wear a mask, damn it. So it just kind of depends on, again, what is it do you want to do, Seamus? Who's your audience? Where are they?
Okay,
That
thank
kind
you.
of thing. And I can't stay up past 8 o'clock at night anymore, so I have no scene.
All right, one more. Who's gonna get the last one? It's whoever I'm gonna see first. Sarah Schweitzer.
All right, Sarah.
What over like your career or careers did you have to do that like made you the most nervous, and how did you do it?
Leave radio, and I got fired. And it was the scariest thing that had ever happened to me. I was 37 years old, 36. I was 36 years old. I was due to give birth any day. Well, I was 7 weeks away from giving birth to my first child, which was at that point becoming less of a publicity stunt and more of a reality. It was like, shit, what'd I do? But that's all I'd ever done was radio. And back then it was the scariest, worst thing that had ever happened to me. And to this day, I will tell you every single day it's the best thing that ever happened to me, because it made me realize there's no such thing as failure if you learn a lesson. And that the more you try, the more you will find, the more you try new things, you'll find it's like trying new foods. You may spit some of it out, but some of it you really like, and you didn't think you did. I didn't think I liked Brussels sprouts. I'm making Brussels sprouts tonight. I cover them with a ton of garlic, but I like Brussels sprouts. it's just knowing, don't be afraid. And when you're young, and I remember being so afraid and so concerned about what people thought, and was I cool? And like Seamus, was I hanging out in the right places? Was I doing this? You know what? Just enjoy it and don't be afraid to try new things. Allie, sing so they can hear you in the next county. And just do it. And and Ashley, play the piano like you're Billy Joel at a bar. Just play. Don't be afraid to try anything. And we're in a pandemic. We're in something that's never happened to any of us. This is a great time to try all kinds of new things and wear your damn mask. So I hope I answered some of your questions. I am Dayna at daynasteele.com. I answer all my own emails, and I'm on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram. My podcast is across all channels. It's on hiatus right now until January. But join me, follow me, talk to me. That's how we grow our networks, all of us.
Awesome. Dayna, thank you so much for being here this evening and offering your time. And we will certainly make sure that students are aware of your website and all of that stuff. So thank you.
Well, just promise you'll have me back live next year when we can actually see real people.
Absolutely, absolutely. We will do that. My thanks also to Julianne for doing a splendid job interviewing. Thanks.
Thank you.
Carly. What's that?
I said thank you.
Sure. And thanks to Carly for doing the initial introductions. And thank you to everyone else here who spent your evening with us. Again, we try to do these once every semester. And as Dayna said, we hope to return to doing all these face-to-face at some point soon. But again, thank you everyone for a wonderful evening and have a good night.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
I definitely sent her a LinkedIn message.
Yeah, when Dr. Young sent us her LinkedIn, I was like, I wonder if she'll connect back with me, and she did. All right, is Ebor just hopping in our Discord to chat for 15? Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
yeah, you saw my message, Dr. Young. Yeah, I was just gonna ask real quick, is it okay? Because I took like 700 words of notes kind of thing. Is it okay if I just submit that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I had no idea that she dated the lead vocalist of AC/DC.
I know.
That was black as fuck.
I was like, you just said that so casually. Casual.
He sang Back in Black, right? Brian Johnson.
That's insane.
Yeah, fucking nuts. Also, I was vibing with her so hard.
The past two panels have been awesome. Like this was so good. Thank you, Dr. Young.
You're welcome.
I'm very glad she was like, Julianne, that she was so talkative for your first like mediation of it. Because when I did a first mediation, none of them wanted to speak.
I remember that. That was weird. They gave you like one-word answers, and I was like, all right. Okay.
So